everyone. Welcome to Masters of CX. Over the last few years, there has been a foundational shift in how businesses are looking at customer experience. So our aim here is to unlock some learnings and trends from the CX playbook of some well-known global brands. Speaking of which, we have with us Francesco Federico, Executive Director of Global Marketing Technology at JLL, the leading services firm that specializes in real estate, investment management, and development consultancy. Francesco, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, to begin with, I'd like to quickly run through the journeys you need to look at and map in your space. If possible, do take us through a typical client journey and some of the key touch points that you need to look at.
Yeah, of course. Well, the client journey has definitely changed, especially since the pandemic hit. We have seen a shift in how customers go through the journey and the touch points they utilize. We definitely see a growth of digital touch points. So customers tend to research a lot B2B brands, really in our case, real estate, professional firms, ourselves and our competitors. A lot of this research happens in self-service and well before they reach out to a human advisor at JLL. So actually our data suggests that 70% of the people who reached out to us have already conducted some sort of research prior to the engagement. And this research usually happens, it starts with Google, starts with a search, starts with an intent of learning something or buying something, and pretty soon lands on our website. I think we are fortunate compared to other industries. We do have a lot of research, a lot of content that is created in-house, and that really drives a lot of organic traffic from Google to our own properties. So a lot of that consideration and education actually happens on a JLL-owned property, which means that we really have to invest a lot of attention on how we craft the user journey on the website and really making sure it delivers that personal touch and relevance throughout the journey.
Let's touch upon some important value propositions we have for customers today. There's convenience, there's consistency, and there are these other expectations on these lines that have quite risen to dramatic levels in the last few years. So what, according to you, are some of the key pillars that kind of make for great CX in real estate especially?
Yes, I think you touched on the main ones. I think also there is a very strong expectation of relevancy on top of personalization. So customers really expect to be known by the company, especially if they have a relationship already with this company. There is a strong expectation that the relationship will take into account the knowledge of the individual customer. And I think at the same time, there is also an expectation of privacy to be respected. So I think for brands, there is a balance that has to be found, because on the one hand, you need to be very, very sort of relevant. On the other hand, you don't want to show up or come across as too intrusive. So it's really about delivering this relevancy at scale that really deliver that great customer experience. I also think that proactivity is important. So, for instance, based on past behavior and interaction, and again, coming back to the example of our own website, based on your previous interaction with the website, even if you are an anonymous user, we try to anticipate what you might need next. And I think, again, this really goes back to the point of convenience that you mentioned earlier, but also relevancy, and making sure that the more you come back to the website, the more relevant the information becomes for you. And I think this is really a clear expectation that users have in the B2B space. We also think that with demographics changing in B2B, you now have a lot of decision makers in the B2B space that are millennials. So you also have a change of demographics, and you're not talking anymore to people that are not digital natives. You are actually talking to digital native people that are decision makers, that are budget holders. So these people have been essentially grown up with Facebook, Twitter, with social media, and they expect that kind of level of sophistication, even when they interact with private banking, or in our case, professional services in the real estate space.
Is there anything that you could give us a use case for in terms of something recent that has happened in where you kind of needed to really understand this journey and needed to pivot into something and bring in a new product because you found a gap and you found that this could fulfill that gap? Something like that?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, one thing that comes to mind on the social media topic is a pilot we ran very successfully a little more than a year ago in the UK, aiming Chinese investors. So again, to the point of millennials getting into sort of the buying roles, we had a number of investors in China who wanted to invest in real estate, residential real estate in the UK, but due to the current limitations of international travel, they couldn't sort of be here. And what we did was we created a WeChat application. So we really went where they were. The Chinese users use WeChat as like the everything app. You know, a lot happens on WeChat. And we built a JLL app for WeChat through which we engaged with this audience. We organized almost live shopping events where we showcased the properties, the investment opportunities, and we allowed these investors to interact with us, with our people, with our experts through the WeChat application. So this was incredibly successful. We actually sold properties through WeChat interactions. So it was a very successful use case, yes. To be honest, it surprised even me because I thought it was going to be a top funnel activity, really sort of generating interest and engagement, but I was not expecting users to be ready to commit to a purchase through the application. And instead, you know, we had a couple of units that were sold this way. So this is just an example where we really tried to build an application on a social media platform that we knew was very popular in that particular market, really trying to tap into that audience of young investors that want to interact with a brand like ours in a very innovative way.
That's very interesting. And speaking of understanding millennials, there's also so much data that is coming into you, especially from digital natives. I'm sure there's a lot of data coming into you from across channels. So one tackles large volumes of data across silos, and there's this need to kind of marry them into different tools and analyze and condense them into really actionable insights. What are some of the gaps that you've seen in client engagement that can arise here, and how best can one address them? If you have any advice on that.
This is a very good point, and actually for us, it's almost a double-sided challenge, because on the one hand, we have the challenge you just described, so the data we are trying to ingest from outside of the company and make sense of it. But also, I look internally within our own company, we haven't really broken down all the silos. So even our own data is, in some instances, still siloed. So we have the challenge internally to bring in that data consistency and at the same time get all the data coming from the market. And I think almost there is a third challenge, and that is the cookieless future that is really upon us. I mean, in 2024 is highly expected that Google will sort of severely limit the ability for brands to leverage cookies. But to be honest with you, already today, if you look at the market, like Firefox and Safari together represent 40% more or less of our own traffic, and they do not allow pretty much cookies, at least not extensively. And so it is already today a challenge, the amount of data we can capture from third parties. So what we are doing to address this challenge is to build as much as possible and as fast as possible first-party data repositories, so we can have this, we can build this holistic view of the customer based on our own data rather than relying on third-party data. I think the challenge is convincing users that it's worth their time to give us their data, because obviously when it's first-party, you need to convince your users to do that for you. So what we are doing at JLL is to build behind login experiences that add value to the user. So if you take My JLL, for instance, we're asking people to register. So spend time, name, surname, email address. I mean, it's a form that can take, between 2 and 5 minutes. And then once you have finally registered, we ask it's optional, but we ask users to fill in a preference center so they can tell us whether they're investors or occupiers, which geographies they're interested in. And obviously, this is a lot of time we're asking them, to commit to. And in exchange for this, what we provide them is with research papers, opinion pieces that are not free to air. So we have taken a very bold decision, because this was not the case in the past, to actually take some of our research and take it offline and only make it available to registered users, which again is a first in our industry, because we used to have our research as our free-to-air main marketing mechanism. Now we're actually some of it taking it offline to give value to the registration.
Right. That sounds very effective, actually. And speaking of that, you spoke about building these omni-channel experiences a little bit, building experiences across channels. So is there something you'd like to add to when it comes to, building frictionless omni-channel experiences for your consumers?
It is, yes, it is very important. I mean, we still are very much an offline business as well. We have, storefronts, especially where we have residential properties. We have physical agencies where people can come in and ask questions, etc. So absolutely, what we are trying to do is to build this unique view of the customer, so that regardless of the touch point, whether you click on a newsletter or you enter a shop or you do something on the website, all of this information is collated in one repository, and we then build a score. So upon that information, we tend to build a score. So let's make an example. For instance, you came onto our website, you registered, you looked at some properties, and then you went into our physical stores. When you step in, as soon as you give your email, the agent on site will know the properties that you have browsed. So the person will understand what your interest is. And based on the physical interaction on the day, the agent will then report this interaction on the system, on the CRM, so that this builds up for future interactions across all channels. It's still early stages, especially for a B2B audience. I think we are ahead of the game when it comes to B2C. When it comes to B2B, still obviously we need to build all these connections. I think the other challenge in B2B is that you don't have one buyer. In B2B, you have cohorts of people that are involved, So if you look at one company, one account, you don't only talk to the budget holder. You sometimes have a decision maker, a budget holder, influencers, end users, and you need to reach all of them with slightly different messages, because the people who will occupy a building, the end users, most of them are not the decision makers. They are not the ones who decide between CBRE or JLL, but you still want to reach out to them so they can influence up to those who will make this decision in the end. So that's the complexity that I think we have to articulate in B2B.
Right. And I'm assuming that technology comes in here a lot, especially, let's say, if you go back a little to the top of the funnel, maybe before that, the CX challenge is really moving from reactive to proactive to preemptive. So today, how effectively can you use AI and ML tools to, predict consumer action and especially understand intent?
This is very interesting, because I think in B2C, we are in a very good place. So as you suggested, there are plenty of technologies we already use to really derive interest and derive what your sort of highly likely next action will be based on your behavior. And that is possible because there is so much data, there are so many visitors, and there is so much data that you can apply all the formulas you need to really predict what the next step for the user will be. In B2B is different because we don't have enough data. So the challenge with B2B is that you don't have millions of buyers. You have thousands, in some cases even hundreds of buyers. So with those limited numbers, it's very difficult to use predictive technologies. So what we do from a technology perspective for B2B is to invest in what we call account-based marketing technologies. So we understand we cannot predict at scale behaviors in B2B, but at least we can identify who you are. And so we use ABM capabilities that enable us to understand which companies are browsing our website. And based on that, we can personalize the experience. So for instance, if you are a UK insurer and you land on the JLL website, you will see content that is tailored to the insurance business.
Right.
If you work for a banking company, you will see content that is tailored to banking and so on. We can really tailor this down to the individual company. At the moment, we have chosen, apart from some exceptions, not to, just because of the sheer amount of content that you would have to create. Because if you have to, target for HSBC, target for Barclays, target for Aviva, it would be obviously, from a content supply chain perspective, unbearable. So we have identified 7 pillars, 7 industries, banking, public sector, insurance, and so on. And we have customized the experience on the website. So based on who you are, the technology enables us to know who you are, to which industry you belong to, and then the experience is customized. So we are not to the point of predictive, but at least we know who you are, and that's enough for us to customize the journey on the website.
Yeah, and that's great enough, because eventually predictive will also become very interesting, probably, and very effective. But this is what is really serving you best right now, I suppose, in terms of your understanding who's coming to the site and things like that. Lastly, Francesco, I wanted to talk about just the essence of proptech. Building emotional connections through agents, especially real agents, is very important in proptech. And then you also need to use virtual agents, because that's crucial for understanding your customers. So when it comes to building deeper relationships, how do you balance this need for both human and tech interactions and nurture like this modern customer-centric organization?
This is a very good point. And I think, again, out of everything that happened in 2020, I think we grew much stronger in integrating virtual capabilities, especially augmented reality capabilities in our sales cycle. So what we have done throughout 2020 and into 2021 was to build the digital twins of our properties. So since buyers could not travel, what we did for them was on top of the virtual tour that you can run just by simply walking around the property, holding your phone during a video call, we built a digital twin of the property so that users could play with it. So to answer your question, today we are in a point where we are using technology to augment the human interaction, to augment the human experience. So back to the example of the digital twin, you reach out to us, you're exploring a property. This could be residential or commercial. Let's take a commercial property. You want to expand your office, you need a larger place. So you come to us, we will help you through a very interactive experience to shortlist the properties you might be interested in. Once you have a short list, we play with you with the digital twins, so you can see, how the different spaces could look like. And finally, once you have the final 2 properties you're interested in, we will really flesh out using these digital twins. We will feed them out in a way that might be suitable for your needs. And so you really see how technology is augmenting this human relationship, because it's the human that is telling you how you will be using your space. It's our expert advisors that are telling you, based on who you are as a company, based on how many people work from home, how many people are in the office, etc., how you use the office, whether you need creative spaces or meeting spaces. We are the ones that fit out the space for you. These are humans, but the way we bring it all to life, even before it's reality, is enabled by technology. And a lot of these can actually happen remotely, which again plays very well into what our users want. They don't want to keep coming into the JLL office. They want to be able to have this premium human experience, but remotely. So this is just an example of how we're really bringing together the two words. And we think it's going to be more and more like this. We think human interaction will still be incredibly important, especially in the professional space, because at the end of the day, this is what we sell. We sell our information, we sell our expertise, but the technology can play a key role in augmenting the whole experience and also helping us command the premium prices that obviously we want to command in the market.
All right. That's a lovely note to end on. Francesco, thank you so much for taking time out today to share these insights with us. It was really lovely having you join us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.